Good afternoon. Before presenting our plenary speakers, I'd like to reiterate the words of the Vice Rector Henry's welcome to this conference this afternoon for those of you who have problems with Spanish. And I hope it's a fictitious conference for everybody and of great value for the people who participate and of course for those of us who are actually taking part in it. It's with great pleasure this afternoon to present Jozef Colpaert, who teaches instructional design, educational technology and computer-assisted language learning at the University of Antwerp in Belgium. He is chairman of the exam committee of the Institute of Education and Information Sciences and director of research and development for the Linguistic Language Institute. He's also editor of the Computer-Assisted Language Learning Journal, published by Taylor & Francis, and the organizer of the biennial International Core Research Conference. He's currently working on the theoretical validation of education engineering, which is a novel instructional design and research methodology. So I'll pass you over to him now to give his presentation on design for personalization and contextualisation.
Buenos días. Good afternoon. Gracias por invitarme aquí en Ávila. Siempre es una alegría volver a esa ciudad. Hace 34 años desde que me bodas aquí en esta ciudad. Thanks to the organizers for having invited me. It's a pleasure to come back to the city. It's only 34 years ago that I visited the city, so I will be glad to go back and see where our souvenirs are spread all over the city. Okay, talking about a city. This is the Cathedral of Antwerp, painted in 1872. And this is exactly the window of my office. This is the view I have. Of course, this woman has disappeared by now. And the window has been refurbished a little. But the view has rather remained the same. And I often show this to people because at first sight it's a very ordinary painting. It's just realistic, it's just a woman sitting in the window. But I could talk about this painting during 2 hours, which I'm not going to do now, rest assured. But if you look very carefully at it, the window is open, the woman is sitting near the window, she put a pot outside, there is a plant which has no leaves nor flowers yet. It seems like the first day of spring. So this is, I start working, I start preparing myself for the results, for seeing the results of my work, but I will have to be patient for a couple of weeks before seeing this plant grow and flourish. And this is the feeling I have with our field technology and language learning and teaching. This is, let's continue to work very hard. Sometimes difficult to see results, but summer will come. That's what we hope. At least that's what motivates me to continue in this field. Now, my experience tells me to warn you. Can you read it while I will read it now? Some statements in this presentation may be perceived as provocative and may cause irritation and even frustration. The speaker is not responsible for possible side effects like goosebumps, big blood pressure, stomach burn, or headache. Some participants will probably say, who the hell does he think he is? This is why he has added the following 2 slides. I'm a little bit tired of hearing people saying, who the hell does he think he is? This is why I just what Tim said in a couple of words. What I want to show is not this evolution, but the slowness of this evolution. I have been language teacher for 6 years, a developer for almost 20 years, and I've been researcher, etc., and only obtained my PhD in 2004. In between, I have 5 children, and since last week, 2 grandchildren. But just to show, this is my background. Not that much from theory, but from some experience and very soon One accident from one accident came to the other, you could say. You can find some more information. I leave this just in presentation. You will probably have the opportunity to download it afterwards. So if you really want all the information you need, is on there. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, just to try it out. I'm not yet completely convinced, just to see what happens together with my students. And I announced there's a conference announcement as well for our international Go conference. I couldn't normally do that yet, but that experience shows that I never get time enough to show this. Now, how do you feel? I mean, how do I feel? Well, sorry, it's impolite to start talking about myself. But now you ask me, I say, well, I feel rather torn between what I know I should do, meaning I think I know the field of computer-assisted language learning, and people tell me constantly through social media, at conferences like this one, constantly we talk about what should happen for our field. So I think I know it. But there's something else. There's what I feel I should do is something else. That's my personal preference. I know very well what I would like to do for the rest of my career. But there are some superiors who decide otherwise and tell me that this is important and that is important, but that does not correspond necessarily to what I want. So there's this constant friction and conflict between what I should do, what I want to. You could say it's the ontological, epistemological, and emotional, whatever. Now, how do you feel? Normally I use now soccer type, Twitter, how do you feel? Oh, I tried it and everyone said, oh, it's fantastic, I feel great, I'm so motivated, I believe in computers, whatever. So, first provocative statement. This is how you feel. This is what I tell researchers and teachers worldwide. This is my impression. This is the way I see the world of technology and language learning and teaching. You feel you should use technology for some reason. You feel pressured to feel technology. Why? You can't afford to teach without technology. Otherwise, the pressure by peers, by students, by superiors, by researchers, by companies, by techniques, would be by your own children, would be too high. If I ask people, why are you using technology? Some people know exactly why. And if we had the time, I could conduct this, and today and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, I hope we can continue the discussion. Say, tell me why you use technology. Now, you also feel, you should use words like flipped classrooms, virtual learning environments, digital pedagogy, blended learning, bring your own device, digital natives, and serious games. The problem I have with these words is, well, you can continue. You use them, no problem. I have no problem with those words. The problem is they're what I call blurred ontology, meaning we do not know exactly what we mean. Someone started using them and we think it means this, but we should absolutely use them in any project proposal. A flipped classroom, why would I flip my classroom? I've been flipping my classroom for the last 30 years without knowing why. But why are we flipping our classroom? Why do I have to use the word flipping instead of designing my learning environment? A virtual learning environment, let's think. If I participate in a virtual investment game and I win, I earn 5 million euros at the end. Did I earn those euros? No, because it's a virtual investment game. It's a game. Now, a virtual learning environment would mean, if I'm strict, that learning does not occur. It's simulating learning. It's simply, why would you call Second Life and other environments? I know I'm exaggerating here, but if you think about it, your environment in OpenSim and in Second Life, those are real environments. Do we learn there? Do we work there? Some people earn money there. So it's not a virtual environment. It's simply a digital environment, that's all. But the real thing happens. So I have problems with the word virtual. Why? Why use the word virtual? Oh, something magic is happening. Digital pedagogy. Do I have to change the way I teach because there is technology? I hope not. I will explain that. Blended learning, I hate the word. Because people nowadays say, oh, I need to blended learning, so I'm okay. No one will criticize me. Oh, I have some exercises on the blackboard. Ooh, I'm okay. It's so binary. It's in face-to-face, face-to-face, or online. In my view, learning environment contains a wide array of possibilities. Not only blended. Bring your own device, same thing. MOOCs. I will come back to the point. MOOCs, nothing against MOOCs. Beautiful initiative. But to what extent is it open? It's not open at all. You can access it. But open in the real meaning of open source, that I download something to work on it, improve it, and share it again. Show me the MOOC that does that. Show me the MOOC where teachers collaborate to make better content and exchange it and share them worldwide. This is a challenge for MOOCs. Digital natives, bring me one. Bring me a digital native. Never seen one in my life. With this magic capacity in the brain to do things we can't do. All they are on Facebook, so they're digital natives. No, they don't know the difference between a spreadsheet and a relational database. They are almost illiterate as far as advanced computer use is concerned. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Serious game, same thing. Serious game, why use a game and then make it serious? Let it be fun, whatever. So what is my problem? It's nothing against the word, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I have problems as an editor of the college journal. I have problems with the fact that people start using those terms all over and all over again without knowing exactly what they mean. So the terms are pervasive, you find them everywhere. It's persuasive language use. If I say you should, blended learning is almost putting pressure on you. You should do blended learning. If everyone is talking about blended learning, if everyone is talking about digital natives, you are going to believe they exist. And blurred ontology. The definition is not clear. My call to our community is, let's work, if we want to be a respected community, let's work on our terminology and use that terminology correctly. So again, nothing against those terms. Haha, for the people who wanted to start this MOOC on statistics. We all feel pressured, we should use advanced statistics. And indeed, there's a beautiful evolution. When I started as editor, then articles came in and people started using some kind of program, and their article was something like, oh, my students just loved it. That was the finding, that was the research design. And now you find articles which deal more with structural equation modeling and very advanced statistics models. I don't know anymore what they mean. And you need 2 additional reviewers to check the statistics in the article. Of course, nothing against statistics. But my point, again, it's a boutade, a little bit exaggerated. If you need advanced statistics, then to prove difference, to show difference, then the difference is not big enough. I want to use technology so that the difference is so enormous on their attitude, on motivation, on achievement, etc. You don't need statistics to show the difference. Otherwise, you're losing your time. Now the researchers are trained nowadays. They only know, they follow this course in research methods, and the only thing they remember is, oh, there's the list of Cohen and Mannion, the Bible of research methods in education, and that's the only thing that exists. So they are trained to find something to measure, and to find something to prove, and fall into this classroom, A, without technology, and B, with technology. So let's compare. And then that's what I call the no significant difference syndrome. Then you won't measure a significant difference. When we give proper weight to local conditions, any generalization is a working hypothesis, not a conclusion. That means you will measure something in your local context, but the only conclusion you can make is this is true in my context. And where the error is in overgeneralization. And like Dorothy Chan has published also an article on the need for replication. And I think this is a theme of one of the Cairo conferences upcoming or already done. It's a need for replication in other countries. We all need to work together. And why are all our doctoral students and master's students looking for original topics and ideas when there are so many topics they can just replicate in their own context? And we need that. That's what Vermeer did with his work in his book on motivation to self-model. He had only one small chapter on the ideal self, and then all the other chapters were on empirical validation of the model in other countries. Beautiful. This is what should be done. You feel you should start it out. This is fun. I normally have this advice when people ask me, how can I prepare a better article so that it gets accepted for publication? And then my first advice is delete the first sentence. I will prove that in a second. You feel the need, young researchers, to start an article with a general vague statement like, the internet has revolutionized the way we learn and teach. Or, in recent years, computers have shown to play an important role in language learning process. Or, you refer to others, assuming that the others have proven that this fact is true, which in the majority of cases, the others were just saying, I think games may play a very important role. That was that person in 2001. So someone else refers to that person and says, that person says games are very important for, and then a third person refers, and then you get this false reinforcement effect of making something true, which is not necessarily true. These are, I swear it, shouldn't swear it in Spain, you can't read, I will read it loud, but just to prove, these are now 6 articles which have been submitted to the College Journal, Computer-Assisted Language Learning, yesterday and the day before yesterday. And this is the beginning of the article, just to show you what I get as articles. So I hope no one here has submitted. And you would never write something like this, but this is what I get all the time. And the rest of the article is very okay, instruction science, statistics, geography, no problem. But it's only the angle of attacking the introduction. I wonder why are people always trying to make statements like, with the rapid development of technology-assisted language learning is a trend. Full stop. Second article, nowadays English has become the most important international language. Oh, I didn't know that. Third, with the advent of the digital age, emerging technologies have come to permeate many daily activities, be they chatting with friends, checking bank statements, or shopping online. I didn't know that. As an editor, I learned many things in a day. Giving feedback in second language writing is a popular point of debate and a common practice for second language instructors. By the way, computer-assisted language learning is a journal for researchers, not for anything else. College students of today identified as so-called digital natives who have grown up surrounded by digital technology and are thus keen to integrate it into various aspects of their daily lives, including in learning. The word thus. They are digital natives, thus they are keen to integrate. And it's also always in the beginning. The rest of the article might be perfectly, so my advice is always, and the strange thing is, cut the first sentence. Simply cut it. And it's okay. Just start with what you have to say. That's fun. So this is how you feel. You feel pressured to do something, to use those words, to write those first sentences. And you feel, that's my point, an accepted finding or proven fact should be measurable, repeatable, and generalized in order to make it a scientific finding. What I think is that most statements are vague and gratuitous. Many are simply not true, like the statements, students learn better with technology, is not true. Not always, depends on the students, depends on the learning, depends on technology, depends on the context, depends on the topic, etc., etc. We will understand that. We hope, of course, that technology plays a very important role. But my point of view is, no technology carries an inherent, measurable, and generalizable effect. Technology in itself does not enhance learning effect. Okay, let's make that clear. Who has gone by plane? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. A little bit of publicity. Okay. My question now is, how do planes fly? Eh? Did you wonder?
Fairy dust. Fairy dust. Fairy dust. No?
Fairy dust, yeah. No, magic. Very important magic is happening. No, why does a plane fly if you're in an Airbus 380? That's a very, very, very heavy, huge thing. When you're inside an Airbus 380, you wonder, how is this thing going to fly? It should fall down. Why is an aircraft flying?
Differences in pressure.
You know too much. Okay. But you know that I'm going to say it's wrong.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Voila. First thing. Same thing for technology, learning and teaching. Same thing. I will use that metaphor for saying most people believe that, the engines of a plane push the plane forward so it flies. Wrong. Secondly, it's by the speed and the airspeed that the wings of the plane push the plane upwards. That's what we think. We think technology has a direct effect on learning. We think it's the wings that push the plane up in the air. Now we get the professional explanation why an aircraft is flying. You said difference in airspeed?
Yes, why it is flying? Well, it's a machine well prepared to resist those tensions. It has fuel. It has enough people inside to resist the weight. It has everything.
But where does the lifting effect come from?
Yeah.
Pressure. The difference in pressure.
Yeah, what difference?
There is a lower pressure up in the upper part and greater pressure, so it's really then being sucked upwards.
That's it. The form of the wing creates a different airstream so that it creates a low pressure on the upper side of the wing and a high pressure so that there is a lifting effect. A plane is not pushed, a plane is pulled in the air. And this is what I will use the metaphor to show you that the same occurs with technology. Technology should not be pushed but pulled. So my point is, planes are not pushed up by the air. Technology does not push learning effect. So, where does the targeted learning effect come from? Do we believe that? Yeah, we all work with technology and we do it instinctively, intuitively. Why would we think it should be done? It will, and we know there is a huge added value. But we can't, as researchers, we should be able to describe it more accurately. So this is what I call the ecological paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is, let's look at things from a different point of view. Let's reverse our reasoning. And I say that any targeted learning effect can only come from the entire learning environment as ecology. A learning environment as ecology, that means a dynamic, taking into account the learning environment, not the digital one, the entire learning environment, as a living interaction among components, among actors, with content, etc., etc. So what do we mean by learning environment? We define a learning environment as the collection of components, meaning actors, learner, teacher, parent, content, teaching model, learning model, evaluation model, infrastructure, technology. So what I teach in the course instructional design is say, how do you create your learning environment? Well, analyze your learner, the teacher, define your teaching model, which will be your teaching model, which will be your learning model, your evaluation model, etc. Plus, how do you decide that? So I put the focus not on the features of the end product, but gradually I've learned to put the focus more on the process, on the recipe. If you compare it to the recipe, second metaphor, you say, learning environment is like a recipe. The result, my souffle, is okay, or it collapsed completely. Well, the same thing with learning environments. I see colleagues who work with enormous amount of enthusiasm and energy, and do not result they want, because, in my view, they forget just some simple detail. They tick all the boxes on the level of the end result, but they forget the recipe. They think that, oh, especially in the case of blended learning, let's put together a peer evaluation, go evaluation, some technology, a little bit of MOOC, a little bit of that, and I have my learning environment. I've learned, hypothesis, is that we should focus on the recipe. So my second paradigm shift is do not think product, do not evaluate even product. People invite me often to go and evaluate their learning environments. Then after 5 minutes in the university of an institution, I feel what happens, I know what happens and what should be done. Not on the level of the product. And they expect me to say something about their content, about the curriculum, about this and that. But I immediately try to find or ask them, what has been your reasoning to come to this eventual form? So the eventual learning effect is proportional to the designedness of the learning environment. And the same thing is, if you want our dish to have a rich flavor, to be very successful, it depends on the recipe and the way we respect the recipe and the way we add with our experience. Also a little bit of the ingredients. But design is the extent to which the learning environment has been designed in a methodological and systematical way. That means that the very important consequence is that design leads to polymorphous results. If I have a good design method and I apply it in Chile, Cuba, Taiwan, here in Ávila, in Belgium, and the fun thing for my job is that it's fascinating because I don't know myself in advance what the results will be. I create with the people. I say, let's do this together, let's apply the design process and see where that leads us. And if you apply such a design model, then the result is fantastic. And you can't probably realize it in 1 year, but I'll come back to that point. So what we should forget, that's a consequence for evaluation. That was at the beginning of CAL, computer-assisted language learning. There were more people evaluating other people's programs than people actually developing programs. And only I get a little bit the same feeling. People are evaluating learning environments, are evaluating technology. Where are the developers of those technologies? Let's develop. And if you look at a program, don't evaluate its features, but try to think what was the reasoning of the developers to have this result, and that result might be different. The third paradigm shift is the psychological one. I published this article, so I'm not going into detail here, but simply to explain, it's the last paradigm shift. Is saying what we normally do in designing learning environments is focusing on pedagogical goals first. In Flanders, we teach French. In secondary education, no one is interested in learning French, whatever. But then we say, oh, we have to convince them, we have to motivate them. And we try to insist French is important, French is fun, you should do French, or etc., etc., etc. And we organize trips to France, cheese and wine evenings, we do this, we do that. And nothing happens, or very little happens. So, all of the years I have developed this model in which it's very simple. It's a focus group interview of 1 hour with a group of students, and you try to identify their subconscious personal goals. It's very simple, but the principle is simple. It's saying instead of focusing on what students have to achieve, of course we will have to focus on that. But when you're designing, it's a process aspect. First, try to respect their personal goals. Students want, and that's different according to the context, they want support, they want respect, they want freedom or not, autonomy or not, etc., etc. And that is why what I try to detect when I design a program or a learning environment, I want the students to feel in the first second to what extent we have tried to respect their personal goals. And the problem is, I have developed a special technique. Why? Because if you ask people what they want and what they like, prefer or not, my point of view is they do not know. Nowadays, confirmed by neuromarketing, even the marketeers acknowledge that people do not know what they want. So, but there are techniques to detect those. I will skip this for the moment, just to show you that I have these 10 hypotheses developed over the years, which are my 10 research lines, let's say. Too many, that's my problem. little bit slow in publishing, etc., but I don't care. Because those things are so fascinating that I'm busy working on them all the time. What's important is I would invite you to do the same. Not work on the same topics, not necessarily to work with me on those topics, but in your daily work, formulate hypotheses which you would like to test empirically. You read literature about it. I've read Vermeer, I've read self-determination theory in order to theoretically validate my theory, and then to go and test it all over the world, at what extent Japanese students are different from those in South America. But why am I working with these hypotheses? I never will say this is true. I said no technology carries an effect on, etc., etc. Is this true or not? It's my hypothesis. And this is what I want to promote as a new research method, as a new activity, as a new way of thinking for us. Let's think in terms of hypotheses which continuously have to be validated in different contexts. And there's a word for that, and that is engineering. When we take this plane, Singapore Airlines also sponsored me, or when we cross this bridge, are we sure that this plane will never crash? I've taken a Malaysian Airlines 777 a couple of weeks ago when the other plane disappeared. So, are you sure that the plane is never going to collapse or crash, or the bridge never going to collapse? No. Do you still take planes? Are you going to cross this bridge in France? Probably yes. So you take the risk. It's a calculated risk. Is perfection possible in this world? No. Is education perfect? Can education be perfect? Well, when I look at teacher education at our university and other universities, I have the impression that some professors will have this statement that education can be perfect and you should make it perfect. Education is, as I said in French, that sounds chic, l'art du possible. Education is l'art du possible. If you look at it this way, it's more fun, it's more engaging. L'art, it's an art, it's not a positive science. It's l'art du possible. In every context, depending on time, energy, people, what you can reach will always be different. So let's stop judging each other. Let's stop evaluating each other. Stop this sickness, this madness of evaluation, also of professors at university in the first place. The Wikipedia definition of engineering, normally if you look at it for a definition, I don't go to Wikipedia, Paul does the definition. Fortunately, I found a very interesting definition by Willy von Cohen. A definition of the engineering method is, by the engineering method, I mean the strategy for causing the best change in a poorly understood or uncertain situation within the available resources. Is that a perfect definition of education? Limited resources, poorly understood situation. So I need a strategy. Engineering, if you look at it, is going where no man has gone before. There's no method, there's nothing known how to solve your problem in your class. How to use that technology, why to use that technology. So you have to make the jump, you have to take the risk. I'm going to cross that bridge, I'm going to take the plane, I'm going to use this technology. My definition based on points is, let's look at engineering as a strategy to apply when not enough knowledge is available. There is not enough knowledge available for our young teachers. So if we explain them to that better, so here's the knowledge, here is what we know. Is that enough? No, you need something else. That's your strategy to survive in this jungle. Okay? Let's make all our teachers and themselves educational engineers, or consider yourselves educational engineers. And you can do that by simply looking at your job and saying, how can I change it? Not by applying as such some kind of new theory, but by building your hypotheses which are based on your own experience and on theory. So, quick definition, educational engineering is about building the best possible educational artifacts, preferably not only these artifacts, but also the general learning environment. It's a construct, it's always a working hypothesis. So what we should do is when we think about using technology, trying to justify this use of technology, trying to know which technology to use, how, when, and why, etc., the best thing to do is to consider your entire learning environment a hypothesis, a design hypothesis. And this is far better. You will feel better with your hypothesis, instead of feeling it's never good enough. This is the tragedy in education. What I call the Sunday evening feeling is this horrible feeling of having to teach 7 hours on Monday, knowing that you're not well prepared enough and you should grade and give feedback and say you'll never read. So, educational engineering goes through loop. I said you can imagine an optimal learning environment, your situation. What would be your optimal learning environment? You can think about, oh, I would like this and this and that, and I can imagine and support here and there. You can do that. Perfect. You take into account your students, you take into account yourselves as teachers, etc., etc. But the realization of an optimal learning environment can never happen in one go. Depending on available resources, time, energy, you have to say, okay, next year let's change this and see what happens. But this is interesting, the choice of what will you do first. When you look at, this is what I call the lighthouse metaphor, you have this idea of your perfect environment in the longer run. But based on that lighthouse metaphor, you define the first step to change, and you know it's depending on money, depending on energy, etc., etc. And then you say, let's go for that, and you go through the entire ADDI loop until you evaluate. You evaluate your change, and that redefines the second loop. When you apply that, and this is what I try to do when people invite me to redesign the learning environment, I do that with them together. I also organize a master class before our conference in July with people for helping them with designing their learning environments. Okay. This is what I said. This is a little bit the detail of the educational engineering process. I'm not going into detail here. So normally the first steps are analysis, formulate requirements, design conceptualization based on reconciling personal and pedagogical goals, and then specification, pedagogical, architectural content. And what's important here, the last aspect of the design phase, the last one. So I do not start with affordances of technology, so I will use technology. I first design all the other aspects of the learning environment based on a good metaphor and a good process. And the last thing I say is, well, now my conclusion is that this technology, that we need absolutely this technology, that particular technology to completely construct our learning environment. And what we hear now is, you hear the pull effect, not the push effect. I design a learning environment, and at the end I say, well, in order to do that, we would need a technology, or no, I will not say technology, but rather a functionality. I need something to allow students to collaborate after hours, to do this, to do that, to co-construct knowledge, etc., etc., etc. So I do even not think about concrete technology, but I specify the technology I would need. And only afterwards I'm going to compare if that exists or not. If it doesn't exist, I have to develop it. Some examples in my case, and there's nothing spectacular about this, but the wiki, and I repeat, in my case, I should not say the wiki has proven to have a huge effect on learning. Yes, in my case, but I can't try to convince you about this. In my case, for knowledge co-construction, and all my courses are nowadays made by my students. I never write a course again. I have a good argument. Educational technology changes so quickly that when you would finish the first chapter, then it's already up to date. So, a wiki for knowledge construction. What I said, that my point was the following. I have students who work all day for a particular course in instructional design, and we have to teach from 8 to 11 in the evening. In Spanish, in Spain, that's rather normal, but in Belgium, that's in the middle of the night, psychologically speaking. And at first, I started giving them tasks. Because why? Because someone told me, we should work in a task-based approach. So I said, let's give them individual assignments, group assignments, etc. And then only afterwards I realized that was a huge problem for them in terms of planning, in terms of reading, etc., classical stories. And nobody would say immediately, well, there's Skype, yes, of course they used Skype, etc. But they had to write the course together. Okay? Built on the content of previous years. Then we started using the wiki, which is the Wikipedia wiki, which is not very user-friendly, it's a little bit boring, you have very strange codes. So far, I have never had to explain anything to my students who normally would harass me with questions about all possible details of our system. And the link is there. You can register, you can look at all my courses developed by students themselves. It can become a MOOC, but a really open one. And then suddenly we saw a very strange phenomenon that students, the wiki, the advantage for me is allows me to give very quick feedback on Sunday evening, open very quickly all the assignments and see where they are and input feedback. And I see also the feedback of the other students. Magnificent. But I saw sometimes groups and individuals who were afraid of putting their work immediately public and who wanted, certainly as a group, to first work within the group without me allowing me to see what they did. And then they created, well, they also created Facebook groups and so on, no problem. But they used Google Docs for the first phase. And this Google Docs, the synchronous writing aspect there is very important to set the first lines of a group assignment is perfect. But the second advantage is that they can work within the group and isolated from me. And only when they think, now we have something more or less presentable, we would like to hear what the other groups think and what the professor thinks, then they put it on the wiki. That's a spontaneous evolution. I was analyzing this. Next to success of interactive textbook, I've written about that. Flash meeting, yes. Here, this is just looking at it, but just also explaining that you will say, well, you're talking about the affordances of technology now. Well, Flash meeting by Open University allows us to simply meet and to exchange whatever. But the very interesting feature is when we started using Flash meeting for European project meetings, we scheduled meetings of 2 hours. And every time we used the tool, we ended after 45 minutes. Then we started analyzing this. Where did the effect come from? Why did we end meetings 45 minutes, after 45 minutes, instead of 2 hours? Where is the magic? Simply the fact that you have to pick a number if you want to say something. You say you want to join the queue, you get your number, like at a butcher shop, you wait your turn. And while with other meetings, everyone is talking in the wild. A very interesting phenomenon is once it's your turn, you will probably very quickly say, that's already been said. So this is a very interesting phenomenon. On the other hand, I see more problematic phenomena like open educational resources. According to literature, it should be huge success. I believe, well, it reduces work by half and the effect by doubling it. I'm certainly convinced open educational resources, development of content, good development of quality will improve, the effect will be there. But what are the psychological factors which make it a problem for teachers? So I see a huge problem in Flanders for teachers to collaborate on open education resources. And with the MOOCs I have no problem, I will come back to that. Recently, well, I always say, in Flanders, I have to, or we often watch British programs, and they're often very funny, especially British cooking programs, because cooking in England seems to be something very different than what we do. But there's one interesting program that is Cupcake Wars. I hope it's British, I'm not even sure who you're doing. But it's Cupcake Wars, and it's competition to make best cupcakes, blah, blah, blah. But normally in those programs, MasterChef, these competitions, the judges come and compare the results and taste and form, etc., etc. And they give points to taste and form. They evaluate the product. And there's one older lady, a member of the jury, who tastes and says, you put in the milk too early and it was not warm enough. And when I saw this, I say, that's what we should do with evaluation of technology and learning environments. They say, what has been your reasoning and how can we improve it? I will skip this slide as well, just to show that I'm working on education engineering as research method. If I wanted to be a research method, then you have to show where do we build knowledge? Where does the knowledge come from? How do we contribute epistemologically? And my point is, our question is, what is the expected actual effect of justifiable change in the design process in terms of product and process indicators? I'm not alone. There's also Plonk, Ving van den Akker in Holland who are working and using the term education engineering. They use it in kind of a different approach. I'm coming from practice and I'm trying to find them now, and they often write things which I even don't understand, so I have to study this. It's not about statistics, but just to say, strange thing is that we are the only ones for using education engineering term. It's very strange. It exists in Spanish, ingeniería educativa, and in French, ingénierie éducative, ou éducation. What I wanted to say today, I have 10 minutes, but only a couple of slides, is then what do I think is the most important aspects I would like to insist or conduct research in the next couple of years? Is that mobile things? Is that open things? Is that etc. etc. Well, my point of view is there are two things that would make the use of technology and language learning quite exciting, and that is what I see is personalization and contextualization. Not only because it would make it exciting, because we need it. So I start with the need. The pull effect is I say there's a need for personalization, contextualization, so we would need that technology. And this is what I'm working on, applying the engineering model. So personalization, based on my own experience and literature, I'm going to detail here, but what does that mean? Generally speaking, it's adaptation. Adaptation to the user, to the individual learner, or to groups of learners, and that adaptation can happen three possible ways. The user can do it him or herself through a sophisticated menu system. The teacher can do it for the learner, or the system can do it itself, and that's what we call intelligent or adaptive tutoring. Now, what does adaptation mean? It's adapting the level of the exercise or the content offered, the topic, semantic fields, the student is interested in, etc., particular specific skills, task types, degrees of freedom, meaning that the program can adapt the length of a menu system. I can offer 500 semantic fields as selection possibilities. Which kind of vocabulary would you like to learn? Or I can say, I will reduce the menu system to 3 possibilities. That's possible. All those things are possible, but they are also needed. And what we see is, how is this possible? Well, I can use learner information through learner analytics, books, we'll speak about learner analytics, personal goal analysis, my technique, learner info, which the learner puts himself in the learning environment, teacher info, social media, etc., etc., etc. Technologically speaking, the technology needed for doing that, and I've written it myself, so I know, is extremely simple. It's a routine of 15 lines. But in order to make it work, it only depends on information. And it's like Google Now or any other device. Why do those things give better and better results? Because they know more and more about you. They know your location, they know what you've done, and they offer you uptime. This thing will probably say in half an hour, you should leave now for home because there's a traffic jam. Does not know yet I'm here. But normally it says time to leave if you have to be home at 6, and the traffic jam is so many, etc., etc. Now, what we see, and this is very interesting in my research on personalization, there's a little bit of a myth that learner autonomy is a little bit overrated. I mean, that we all start designing learning environments and we say, oh, the learner can choose, assuming that the learner wants all possible choices. There is what we call, it's a Dutch term, and only Dutch article on keuzestress, choice stress. Psychologically speaking, if you give too many choices, that leads to stress with the learner and with the teacher. So we say what the programs I would like to develop in the future will only be, and it's probable to convince publishers and other partners of that fact. I refuse to make programs which do not automatically adapt themselves to the user. We know so much about the user, so we can start immediately with the vocabulary, with a specific kind of exercise, and with the topic he or she wants. And that's a problem for books. Because with a book, we have so many different learners that it becomes exponentially more difficult to have enough information. If it's about our students in our school, and we do this, you have to use social media, etc. So let's say that's a point of research. The point of research is saying, in my hypothesis, my gut feeling, based on literature and my personal experience, is that personalization is the way of the future, but it should be as much as possible system defined, possibly with a role for the teacher, that the teacher can also say, yes, for this student, this or that, that's good design. And a system architecture. So how many articles have you read about learning environments, electronic learning environments that have been built this way? That's my question. Contextualization, based on literature, on situated learning, etc., and my own experience, we should adapt the learning process also to the geotemporal context of the learner. Meaning, adapting everything to where the learner is. So, there's a need for, when I'm in different locations, I would need different relevant documents. I could possibly need meaningful, useful, enjoyable tasks, relevant exercises, or generated questions. Nowadays, if I look at technology and I pull, and I see, how fortunate that mobile devices afford all those things. I'm not going to read them because they're quite obvious and well known to you. But if you look at it, that depending on what Foursquare, etc., imagine you're near the Colosseum, whatever you're learning Italian, you can be connected immediately to all people learning Italian, etc., given a task, work together with natives, have a task to go and ask something to natives, go and have your answer evaluated. There's such a, when I think about it, I'm getting very stressed and nervous, because if you think about the possibilities generated by this kind of system, and again, technology is pretty very simple. But again, all depends on available data. Web 3.0 phenomenon entails an explosion of available data based on the concept of openness. If one's son became control degree on open data, that's why I know it. Data enrichment, semantic networks, interoperability of applications. That means that there's a huge evolution going on this level of available data. When I am here now, when does the next train to Madrid leave from the station in Ávila? Otherwise, I would have to go to the site of, etc., etc. No, the system should already prepare that in advance, because it should know that I'm going to be back. It has all the information, it knows where I am. An example. Problem of information sources. What are the information sources? When I'm in the neighborhood of something, I can look up, or the system can look up, available authentic documents. I can look up tag and rich materials. I can look up interesting things through semantic networks, social media devices, existing course materials, and that's an interesting point with MOOCs, which is not open yet enough. I need to quickly get exercises. Someone in the world will probably have developed some kind of interesting task or exercise on the Colosseum while I'm there. Why not? That's the future, not yet. Technology is extremely simple. If we have those data and information, that will create a fabulous new device. Well, the simplest example, and I hope you will be able to give me many other ideas, or keep them for yourselves, and so you start your own company very quickly. Now, hopefully you have an idea for a new app. It's about noon. My smartphone shows me the lunch menu from an Italian restaurant in the neighborhood, with translations adapted to my level. It shows a button, make a reservation, and invite friends. I would love to have this. I'm going to my hotel now, and let's say that the thing immediately showed me, well, this evening that you can go to, that there's a concert, there's a flamenco there, whatever. Immediately knows where I am and knows what I need. Personalization and contextualization at the same time. And now, for specific purposes, this is interesting, especially for special purposes. Why? Because for LSP, we need more about the specific topic that the learner needs. It's a very specialized topic. So we need to adapt even more to the learner. We need more specialized content, more difficult to find. So this is what contextualization means. And you can probably give me more examples, but the time is almost up. What is also interesting in this respect, for those people interested, that it makes computational linguistics and Colpaert interesting again. Not that they were not more into, but they were not sexy anymore. Only some fanatics were still working like me in computational linguistics. Wanted to, let's rename honestly. What is quantitative linguistics? But computational linguistics and corpora will play a huge role in what do you do with the data available, with the corpora, with the authentic documents available. There's a huge future for us. The good news is technology is extremely simple. I have that technology already. Those routines I can give them to you. It will be all open source. I'm not going to start another company at my age. So, what have I told you? That education engineering is an iterative and cyclic instructional design model. No technology carries an effect on learning, can only come from the learning environment. And this is also important that people ask me, which technologies to use, when, how, why? I can't tell them, and I will never tell them. So let's go through the design exercise together and discover together what magnificent solutions we find. It's the result of a process and will thus depend on your context. That's amazing. You don't know in advance. Which, when, how, and where can only be defined by the teachers themselves. Don't be pressured by anyone who tells you to use a specific technology. Your reaction would be, why would I do so? Why would I do so? What is the reasoning behind it? Because there's a proven effect. Show me the literature. Okay? That's what I do. I help teachers defend themselves against pressure. Read the articles. I skipped this one. What I wanted to show with the aircraft metaphor is that the role of technology is to allow the realization of powerful learning environment. Is that the methodological design process creates a pull effect towards technology. At the end of our design exercise is conclusion, we need technology. Or not. Can be. In some cases that you do not need technology. So, voila. There are several other approaches to ICT integration. So I'm not saying that's the only one. And I'm not even against even a hype-driven approach, what we call a technology-driven approach. Why? Well, if there's a new hype, I would say, just try it with your students and tell them, hey students, for me you are important enough that I think you can work with me on testing this thing. It's just that people say it's why not? And so there's a pedagogy-based model based on some kind of theory. Well, it might be interesting, it's not my way. That's the last way. But I say it's a good mix, but it's just interesting to know to situate yourself, your approach with the integration of ICT in your learning and teaching is what is your choice. That's the most important thing. I consider this myself as an engineer, as research. And finally, do not use flipped classrooms, but well-designed classrooms. Do not use virtual learning environments, but real learning environments. Do not use digital pedagogy, but sound pedagogy. Blended learning, distributed learning. Just make a wide range of possibilities. Digital natives are just young people. Massive open online courses. Just make it freely accessible courses. While you work on any device, why bring your own device? Schools say, oh, you don't have to pay, bring your own device. No, just if we design for any device. And serious games that simply talk about meaningful, useful, and enjoyable tasks. That's all. Whatever it is, it may be a game or something else. Okay. That was my conclusion. And this is the information you might need if you're interested. Any questions?
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting presentation. And as a software engineer myself, I was quite taken by the comparison, especially when we look at the examples of aeroplanes and bridges. It reminds me of the joke of, what's the difference between a civil engineer and an assassin? Does anybody know the answer? Assassins only kill one person at a time. Okay, perhaps we can open up the round of questions. Who'd like to break for us?
Yeah. Thank you very much for a most interesting talk. I agree that ideally it's all very well to take students into consideration and see what are their interests, etc. But I think perhaps you were thinking of small groups, because I'm not going all the way to MOOCs, but in the middle we have something like UNED, where I can't imagine how I could put my students in this game of taking into consideration consideration their needs, apart from, of course, my own intuition by judging their interaction in the forums, etc. But by then, the design will have to be, perfectly sorted, because in an online environment, there is no such thing as improvisation, as you very well know. Thank you.
Yes, I know the situation you're in. It's indeed very difficult to design for so many students at the same time. I tried it to create a learning environment for the University of Antwerp, but it was a magnificent failure. Well, I had failures in my career. But I learned very quickly that it's almost impossible. But what you said was very interesting. You're saying, I can't design for all those needs, the students' needs. And that's exactly where it goes wrong. You have to take into account their needs, possible needs, but as I said, they are not always themselves aware of what they really need. And the word you have to use is goals. You can try to identify. The difference between needs and goals is that, in my model, that needs are actually things that exist and are so different for so many users, so extremely difficult to take those into account. Once you go to goals, which are design concepts, hypotheses, and you say, I'm going to identify what the most important subconscious goals of my students are. These are, and certainly in the article I referred to, are not psychological realities. You can't design for psychological realities. You have to make an assumption of what would be the most common denominator of what really thrives or interests them. And if you say, for my population, I think with the experience you have, and if we talk a little bit more about that, I think if we could identify, doing another more focus groups, a couple of focus groups on this, we could identify, let's say, 3 personal goals which are very important for all your students, or perhaps say, well, there are clearly 2 or 3 groups who have different. So the goal, personal goal, is not only a way to design, a starting point for design, but it's also a way of dealing with very large groups. But at the same time, and I've said that in the case of MOOCs, it's a problem. Because MOOCs are just, exactly, made like this, and we'll see who comes, and then you have fallout rates, and then you observe what happens. But no MOOC has ever designed yet in a methodological way. It is a noble initiative to open up courses to the entire world, etc. I'm completely pro. But my question is, to what extent have they been designed? And the problem is, if I had to design a MOOC, I would have the same problem. You're in a different situation. In MOOC, I understand it as something completely online. You offer a wide variety of things, which is different. So you have the possibility to have this feel of what the students, how they react on specific initiatives. But if you added this focus group technique to go and discover, but it's very difficult because they are not here. Do it online, I don't know it myself. So, but certainly that the difference between needs and goals is already first.
Perhaps I can ask you a question in that vein, because a lot of what you were saying is directly addresses the teacher, if you like. What advice would you have for the institutions? Because quite often as a teacher you find out your hands are pretty much tied because you're told to use this platform, these tools, here's your time. How would you advise the institutions to provide the technology in such a flexible way to enable teachers to undertake this sort of process?
Very difficult questions. I'm on the board of the University of Antwerp who decides on the technology to be implemented. We pay every year a fortune for using Blackboard, etc., so I'm not very happy with that. They discuss computer classrooms in this area. Computer classrooms, they pay for why computer classrooms? Just for examination purposes. So they install complete computer labs for examination purposes. Only for that. And open learning centers. No one is going to open learning centers anymore. And on the other hand, you see a very interesting phenomenon in Belgium. I don't know if it's in other countries the same phenomenon. Students normally study in their room. A recent phenomenon in Belgium is that they want to study together. They go to the library and fill entire rooms. So the committee, instead of deciding on which technology to use, had to open up entire rooms so that students could come in the evening, they just sit together, no one has to watch them, it's very quiet, nothing happens, they're all working very hard, but they need to do the work together. Those phenomena are very important. To come back to your question, so there's the feeling of indeed, it's a huge problem, because my point is the teachers have to decide which technologies to use, when, why, and how for their own context. The role of the institution is to support that, but of course, if you do that, you don't have an institution-wide vision. And all directors, or whatever you call them, want to put their stamp on, this is the policy we have. And that the policy consists mainly on deciding between Blackboard and Moodle, but that's a huge discussion that takes on for years and years before they end up with that discussion. I would say that an institution, on institution level, should bring together the teacher and define common needs for the teachers. Common needs for the teachers. And invest in that and see which common platform they could invest in. If you look at it, if you look at mobile learning, if you exactly, again, the right meaning of the term mobile learning, that means that students do anything, and indeed on the mobile device, on the tablet, on the thing, they might go to the internet cafe, they do anything. Why install classrooms? What we should do, what an institution can do, is support teachers that develop their own courses, that develop MOOCs, that try to develop open educational resources, and invest on content, not really technology. The technology, I would wait. I don't know for myself what institution. It's indeed the problem. They should listen to teachers. That's my point.
Well, Tony?
I beg your pardon if I don't make the right question, because I'm not a language teacher. I'm just a computational, I'm on the computational staff. I'm a computer scientist doing computational linguistics who is trying to learn how to help people learn languages with mobile devices. But if I understood well your presentation, you mean that just using a methodology to create your content is enough to make it a good course. Am I right? Because you don't favor measuring the effect of courses. How do you know that you are doing well your job?
That's a correct question. Of course, one day we will have to show and prove. I said at the beginning, don't be pressured to absolutely want to. I said it happens too soon. That was my point. He's saying that all people want immediately, they just start to use the wiki and they already want to measure the effect on attitude and perception, etc., but not statistics. Of course, we will have to prove that the design of our learning environment leads to more effect. But until we can prove it, we first have to create this learning environment. And this is, my personal problem, is why publication in the field about these findings is very difficult, because how can I publish about the first cycle in one institution? I have to wait until I have 10 cycles in 20 institutions until I can say something about the effect. Again, it's not only the effect of the building of the content, it's the cycle, the process of building the entire learning environment. That means analyzing the learner, defining the teacher, teaching model, learning model, which you have to also design for yourself. You're not just going to apply constructivist model. You have to know about constructivism to see how it can inspire you in your own situation. Are you going to use co-evaluation, peer evaluation, self-evaluation? Why and how? Same thing. So it's not only content, it's not only technology, it's all those ingredients. But you're absolutely correct. Meaning, I see those two things, the treatment analysis, let's call it experimental research, trying to measure and prove effect, as complementary to what I see has to happen first. And I have to discuss this every day with my colleagues at my institution of education sciences, because I have to convince their traditional pedagogues. So they absolutely stick to that. That's the Bible. And they say, no, what's the use of trying to measure something if it's not okay? It's like trying to measure the fuel consumption of your car if you have a flat tire. Fix your tire first before measuring something. I don't know if that's a good metaphor, but just imagine. And this is my relationship with the theoretical colleagues. But I see a perfect complementarity. Let's make first, try to approximate the most optimal learning environment before to start measuring something. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to measure anything. If you are not sure that it has been done in the best possible way. Perfect is not usable.
Thank you very much, Jozef. We'll leave any more questions for the coffee break. You do have a coffee break now, and I encourage you to look at the programme during the break to actually decide which of the parallel sessions you're going to afterwards. So could we just say thank you to Jozef?